Oh, hey everybody. Wayland from Bum's Barbecue here. Well, it's exciting this morning. I got a job to do and I'm actually getting the opportunity to play with a few new things I got. Obviously, I've got the ability to set the phone down instead of holding it in my face. Hopefully these videos will look a little bit better. Primarily, my goal is to actually cook more barbecue. I just found that I really love doing it, and I want to get my name and face kind of out there before I fully open some sort of a food truck or a business, maybe a storefront. So here I am. Also, maybe just present to you guys some enjoyable content. I'm going to be preparing today a brisket, turkey breast, and a couple sides. My wife's in there. Amber is the other half of Bum's Barbecue. She's preparing some potato salad, and we're going to do some seasoned green beans. So a couple simple sides. I'll present with the meats and the sides. A couple of my favorite breads, just a giant Texas bread, toast style, and a steak roll that I like to buy that goes great with the brisket. So anyways, we're getting started. I need to add a few more logs to the fire. I noticed it was coal bed was forming. I need to get a little bit more coals going. I'm going to close the firebox and then allow the cook chamber to come up to temp. Actually, before I get to trimming, I wanted to make sure my cooker was ready to go, that I didn't neglect the fire and let it go too low. And I remembered I needed to hook up my thermometer. I've got a couple analog thermometers. This one here says I'm just below 300. This one here says I'm at about 355. So, of course, this part of your cooker with the fire coming in and starting to travel across the cooker, this is going to be the hottest. It's closer to the fire and it is up at the top, so that makes sense. But I definitely want to be monitoring my temperatures between here and here at grate level, because that's where I'm going to place my meats. I actually have two leads, one here and one here, that I connect to a thermoprobe. This thermoprobe was cost efficient for me, and it's turned out to work really well. So I'm going to install it. It's got a little hook. I actually got some magnetic hooks off Amazon. These things are really strong and they've worked. I just have one installed here. Now with the door open, I'm at 130 something degrees, so definitely going to close the door, let the cook chamber get back up to temperature while we trim this brisket and season it up. So I found that these cut gloves work very well. Got tired of cutting myself. I also know that your brisket, if it's just colder, it trims easier. So at times I'll put it in the freezer for a while, pull it out, and then start trimming. I've not done that today. I've got a couple briskets in the cooler on ice below me. So we're gonna see how this will go. A sharp knife is always good. Keeping it sharp is one way to make sure you have an easier time cutting up your brisket. No special brisket here. About 15 pounds. I'm going to trim out a good amount of this fat and then season it up. Of course, I recommend trimming a little bit of the flat so it's not thinner than your thumb. So if you've got to round it off, eliminate some of the thin parts. But if you can actually get a brisket that starts thicker than your thumb, you're doing pretty well. We're going to trim that fat cap down to about 1/4 inch or something that you think looks good. Try not to scalp it and expose the meat on this side. And try to make it aerodynamic. Nice uniform brisket, I find, just cooks up a lot better. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Looks good. It's always goofy to grab. There we go. So we'll see. Yeah, that's fairly easy. Yeah, nice. Just cold enough, and with a good knife, sharp knife, you're going to be able to make it through the fat with ease. At times, I'll take this fat, trim it up into small pieces, or even grind it up, put it in a foil tray, and then go ahead and smoke it up and have smoked tallow. All right, so that part's a little thin. As I pull it out and stretch it out, I'm gonna go ahead and round this off here. And I like to go ahead and cube my meat pieces like this that I'll grind up later for sausage. And while it's cold and while I'm cutting, and before I go ahead and put it back in the freezer in a sealed bag, I like to go ahead and cut it into cubes. I'm gonna go ahead and take some of this fat down here. Try to expose all the meat here on the top, and eliminate some of the fat on this side, on the meat side. I'm not too particular. I started out by cooking my briskets with fat side down and leaving the meat side as the presentation side. But after observing a few others and learning a little bit more, the better looking bark side for me is the fatty side. And so I found that my cooks just come out better with the fat up. Now, again, wherever the fire is, you kind of want the fat to take the, the brunt of the fire. So if you do have like this offset where the fire runs across the top, I recommend you putting the fat cap up. But if you're doing a pellet cooker, maybe the fat down towards the fire will work out better to preserve the meat. Try it both ways. I like to start my cooks on the offset and finish them on the pellet cooker, and I leave it just with the fat side up. So works out good. Nothing like practice to help you hone in your cooks. It's nice to do this outside today. Oh, they gouged that. Oh goodness, I just hate to see the butchers do that. Wow. We're gonna go ahead and let it stay there. Sometimes you might trim that off, that flap, but it's kind of a thick, deep cut, so you might not want to create that groove. I'll just let it lay flat, and that part might not come out ideal, but there we go. Sometimes it is what it is. So I'll get to working on that again some more. I'm going to cut down this side, get some of this kind of indifferent looking part off here. Again, even with the fat, I like to sometimes go ahead and cut it into smaller bits so it renders down a little bit better. I'll separate some of the fat from the meat here in a bit before I start cooking it up. I like to try to get any parts. I was always afraid to cut it down and lose some potential meat, like this little piece here. But I found that if it takes more of the heat and the convection, you'll lose it anyways. It'll be more crispy bits, so unless you like that. But most people just love a nice tender bite of brisket meat. So anyways, again, not too particular. I don't clean it up. Sometimes I've made sure it was all meat, no fat, and I found that either way it comes out just about the same. So trim it down to your liking. Definitely gonna lose this here. They call it the mohawk per se. Trim that down. Some good meat in there for sausage and stuff, but it just wouldn't come out too great in a full cook there. So we'll save that meat for later. Now I'm gonna get this fat to be pretty trimmed down. Unfortunately, this is a huge chunk of fat here. I did purchase a case of brisket for the first time from Cisco. This is a choice brisket. Like I said, nothing special. I've actually cooked mostly with, you know, your Costco Prime or your Sam's Club Prime. So, but this was supposed to be comparable. So we're going to see. I didn't get to pick these out. It was a box of 5, and already I'm seeing that there's a lot of fat. If I buy it at the store, I'm able to kind of go through and pick one with a little less fat on it. Sometimes they butcher them up in your favor, but in this case, when I bought these briskets from Cisco, it was what it was. I got what they had in their boxes. So paid about $3.25 a pound, and the salesman said that this Iowa premium Black Angus choice was comparable to a prime. So we're going to find out. I'm going to cook 2 of these today. One of them is going to a customer, and the other I need for Friday. So I'm going to actually vac seal it whole and freeze it after I'm done smoking it. And we're going to see what that's going to come out like. So just trying to get this to be not too thick. We love the fat in our bites, but we don't like it being grossly fat. So I'm actually going to trim this end here, rotate it around, and yeah, that's a lot of fat. So I'll tell you, if I'm paying for $3.25 a pound, that might sound nice and all, but if 10 pounds of it is fat, you're not really getting a good deal. So I don't know if I will purchase this again. I was hoping that having an account with like Cisco, a wholesaler or something like that, would help me get briskets at a little bit more affordable price, so I can kind of make a profit. But so far it doesn't look like Cisco is going to be the one for that. Yeah, Cisco's nice. They got a lot of stuff all in one place, and you just kind of order it from an app. And then I did will call, so I picked these up myself the same day. Like I said, a whole box of briskets. But there's a lot of fat on them, so we're gonna see. Now it looks well marbled, even as I'm exposing this flat, and I'll show you, it looks pretty well marbled. So it may come out looking and tasting really good, but I'm still trying to go for cost here. So it's got a really thick fat after all. So and I scalped it a little. I've actually trimmed the point a lot lower and exposing the fat at times. I've learned a lot of tips and tricks from some of our favorite YouTubers. Harry Sue at Slap Your Daddy Barbecue likes to expose the point muscle more because it's got enough fat in there to withstand the cook, and you end up with a more universal or overall barky, meaty bite without the fat on the outside. So both is good. I'll leave fat because you get that uniform bark all over the whole thing. But when you trim this kind of tomahawk spot, you usually get that exposed anyway. So if you expose this whole spot here, it's gonna be all right. I'll see. It depends on my mood. I think it's kind of looking pretty good. The other thing about not going too far into the meat is to keep a good shape. So we're gonna maybe go ahead and leave it like that today. Yeah, there's a good amount of fat between the flat and the point. So when I buy a brisket, I try to find one that doesn't have this hunk of fat right in between. You can actually usually feel it when it feels like real dense in between there. You know you're going to get a lot of fat in between the muscles, which if rendered down helps for juiciness. But you ever seen briskets where in between them you got that kind of stringy looking, that fat where it broke down? The fat's not in there, but it's a bigger gap than others. If you ever find it where it's a smaller gap, it just had less fat in between the two muscles, and you can kind of feel that when you pinch on the briskets. It feels real dense up in between the two, then it's probably got a lot of fat in between there. So anyways, I've seen where people dig in and cut it out. I know competition cooks or trims are a lot different. I've done that too, split it in half, separated the point from the flat, got all the fat out. Again, you want to learn how to cook some competition brisket, check out Harry's Stew at Slap Your Daddy Barbecue. Great content and very, very inspiring. I was considering competition, but I actually went to one to present meat for one, and then I went down to Texas, and I was ready to do it, and they canceled it, and that kind of I spent a lot of resources to prepare for it, and then they canceled it. It was a small time one. I was just trying to get my feet wet, but that really stung, and made me think I didn't really maybe have a passion for it. I have presented smoked meats to people, and they go, "Wow, that's really good. You could sell this." And I said, well, maybe I have a gift in it, and I'd like to go ahead and do that for fun, maybe some extra cash, or maybe open up a food truck and do it on the weekends. But I want to get my name out there, and I've had people from around the U.S. try my brisket. I teach a class for the United States Postal Service. I teach maintenance men and women around the U.S. how to work on the machines that sort the mail, and so once in a while I'll bring brisket to them as a lunch or a couple samples, and I hear pretty well around the board that it's the best brisket that people have ever had. So anyways, so this one's a little thick right there, but I'm hesitant to trim it any more because I do want to keep it a certain thickness. So I think that's about good. See this part right here, you'd think to leave it, but what happens is it just usually crisps up anyways. So it is what it is. You hate to do it, but if you don't, it tends to not be perfect anyways. So, but when you make it into sausage, it's much more tasty than when you leave it on there and let it dry out. So it's okay. Really depends on how far you want to take it. Sometimes you can kind of feel how dense it is, or you can kind of feel what you get used to, what it feels like, and you can feel how dense it is, and that you can take it down a little bit further. So yeah, that's quite a bit off of this one. I'm really kind of disappointed in how much fat it really did have on it. So I'm gonna have to find a beef vendor that really works for me. I don't know what these, you know, I don't know what these guys who are in business or where they're buying their stuff from, but there's no way that they can buy this quality and survive financially. So I definitely need to find out where I can get better cuts of brisket at a better price. Right now, Costco's got it at $3.99 a pound, and I'd have been happier with that. I usually can pick out briskets that have been just butchered a little bit better with not as much fat on it, and I'd be happier with my you know, my end product. So I'm gonna take this down a little bit more on the point, the fatty side, because it doesn't need that much, and I'm still able to keep the shape here. Yeah, kind of disappointing, but this stuff now feels a lot softer. I've eliminated a lot of the hard fat and left it in a good shape so that it'll cook really well. Maybe trim this right here a little, so there we go. All right, yeah, that's a little dense feeling still right here. Better. All right, well, let's get this off here. I found that if you dig this out, you leave the crevasse. I like to leave it in. It goes ahead and melts down pretty good. I don't try to dig down in there unless I feel it's way too much. That seems okay. Let's see. We'll see what happens. The only problem with this cook here is this brisket isn't going to be sliced into by me. Sometimes you really get to see the results of the actions you took when you start cutting into it. So if you're going to be selling it to somebody, you better be pretty darn well sure that your confidence is going to come out like you like. Oh, actually, I am going to trim into this one. Sometimes I'll sell a brisket to folks and I'll give them trimming instructions, but this is actually going to be prepared as kind of like catering, so they want to be able to just start eating out of the tray. So actually, I am going to slice this up. So, which the good thing about that is I can kind of toss some of the stuff that just didn't come out too well, so they'll never know if I ruined a part of it. So I might just go ahead and stop here. Yeah, I think I've got enough of the fat cap down. Expose some of the meat there. So I don't really want to take that off, which, yeah, maybe a little. I can really feel it feels dense. So if you leave it too thick and dense, it just doesn't quite render down. So pretty soft overall. We've got some decent marbling in this point, in this point area. From the flat to the point, you can kind of see some decent marbling in the flat. I can see some fat intermuscular here, so some marbling. So I think it's pretty good to go. I'll season it and get it on the smoker, because if I don't get it on soon, I'll be up all night. So I'm gonna go ahead and trade. Yeah. Trade the cutting board for my tray. And we're gonna apply the rub on here. So some basics. We got the pepper. Oh, the wind. You know, I've not quite done this outside yet, right? So usually I just go ahead and season them inside. And so some of these things is kind of hard in these Oklahoma winds, but I'm going to use it to my advantage. Well, see? Yeah, it is what it is. You got to just get a nice even coat. When I first started doing the briskets, I was kind of following the YouTube instructor's advice, put a nice coat of pepper, and then my wife said she thought it was too peppery, and I even thought it was also. I first started cooking on a pellet cooker, and I found that you get a lighter bark, a nice red color, but it really just didn't take the kind of bark you get from the offset. So I noticed with the offset, doing the really long cooks with that good smoked taste, you diminish that peppery taste. So just be careful when you're putting your pepper on there. If you're doing something like just a pellet cooker, I might try it a little bit more mild first, and then see how it turns out, and then decide if you like more pepper taste. With an offset, it seems that the pepper taste is diminished greatly. I mean, it gets cooked into that bark. Little pepper. I've got this that I really like. Trying to get in touch with the manufacturer of it. I will say maybe it's my secret for now, but you can use garlic. Has a really good turnout. I try not to get too carried away with this, but I think it adds a great flavor. It's actually something I found that I tried, and then realized that gave me the flavor profile that I really like. And then they stopped carrying it at the store I bought it from. So you can use definitely use garlic, good old Lowry's. I try not to be too heavy with some of these, because they have the salt in them, like Lowry's. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply a coarse salt too, because I want to help that bark develop. Okay. The reason why I like to go ahead and do it on this tray is because I can kind of, as I miss, and especially with the wind, I can actually go ahead and pick the brisket up and dab it all around the tray here to help reestablish the bark. And here's just some coarse salt. Of course, like I said, I don't put the salt too heavy. I don't want it to be too salty. I want it to taste the meat too, and some of the other seasonings. But yeah, I gotta love that wind. Oklahoma, where the wind goes. sweeping down the plain. I don't know. I'm not a native Oklahoman. I was born in Mississippi and then moved around the U.S. with my dad being a Marine. So lastly ended up in California and made our home there for a while after my dad got out of the military. And then I decided I wanted to get out of California and move to Oklahoma, which is where I had some brisket moist for the first time. I fell in love with it and decided to venture in this endeavor of cooking. Now, sorry, realized I could get this. Anyways, there we go. So, the post office actually brought me to Oklahoma. I did not realize how windy it was or what the temperatures were like. I think I'm in the 40s today as I'm out here cooking. So we're gonna put this on. All right, so we're gonna take this thing and go ahead and put it on the fire. I like to do fat up, like I said. I'm gonna set it here for now. It's the only thing I'm gonna have on the cooker for a minute. I'm gonna trim up another brisket and then I'm gonna season it and put it on too, just like I've done this one. And then we'll move things around where they need to be to put on the rest of the meats, like turkey breast and ribs. All right, got both briskets trimmed and done. Now I'm gonna get some pork ribs up on the cooker so we can get those going. I got 4 racks total. 3 I'm gonna prepare for the cater. Well, looks like I probably need to sharpen this knife after trimming on that brisket. I went ahead and just grabbed another that I had. Yeah, that makes a difference there. So you always want to try to keep your knife sharp, ready to use. Always have some backups also. Yeah, way better. Cheap knives off Amazon. I think they're about 17 bucks a piece. This is Victor Inox. However you pronounce that. Victorinox. So they seem to come pretty sharp, and then they're pretty easy to keep sharpened with a sharpener. Now, you might pull your membranes off the back here. Sometimes I find that there's not much of one. You might trim off something like this. But if you can get right next to the bone and then pry up on that membrane and grab a part of it and start to peel it back, then I recommend you could, but sometimes like this doesn't seem to want to come up very easily. I'm having to cut too far. It's not easy to grab. You can do the old slice and do some of that kind of technique and you're pretty good with it. So I think that's what I'm going to do. It's not like this membrane's really easy to get off, and it doesn't seem very elastic, so I'm okay with leaving it on there, and then we'll get these seasoned up. There's not a lot of trimming you need to do to pork ribs unless you got something weird like this hanging off. But anyways, you just pretty much open them up and then season them and put them on the grill. Let's see. Yeah, this seems good to me. Nice pieces here. I would basically season these the same way as the brisket. To me, that's a pretty good flavor profile for both applications. Pork ribs and brisket. I actually like my pork ribs barbecue sauced, but I'm not gonna sauce these. Well, I'll sauce one because my wife also likes it. And one of these is ours. We're gonna eat tonight. The other ones are gonna go for the catering event. So. Now I found with the seasoning of these, you don't want to overdo it on the pepper. Whoops. I'm not cooking these as long as I am a brisket. So you definitely don't want it to be too peppery, but seasoned to taste for sure.
Some of that secret seasoning. Yeah, wasting it to the wind. Oh, we should get some stock in Lowry's, right?
Ribs now onto the cooker here. Ah, smoke in the eyes. So I'll rotate these a bit away and towards the fire as need be. Definitely closer to the fire is going to be the hottest. So I'm going to put these on to smoke. Like I said, probably 3 or 4 hours. I'm just going to monitor them regularly to see the color that comes out on them. And once they're a color that I like, then I'll wrap them in foil with butter. All right, so I gotta go ahead and add some water to the water pot. I almost forgot about that, so I'm gonna rinse this out and get some water in it and put it back in. Have water inside there. It helps create a humid atmosphere for your meats to not dry out. I find it helps a lot. I've done it with and without, so I really like it. You know, I'll still spritz the dry points of the briskets as need be, but it has helped me not to have to spritz so much when I actually keep a full water pot in there. The other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab that fat and put it on the cooker so I can render it down into tallow. So sadly, it was quite a bit of fat. I wasn't too nitpicky about every little bit of red meat that was in there, but I did take out all the chunks of meat. I got about 2-gallon bag of Ziploc that I will grind that into some ground beef later, maybe use it for sausages. But for now, I'm just gonna put this pretty close to the fire, and it will heat up and melt into smoked tallow. It'll be some liquid gold I can use later to wrap my briskets in. So we're gonna let the brisket and rib cook for a few hours. Let these briskets cook. I really don't need to look at them for another 3 hours, and I really don't need to look at the ribs for another 3 hours. So I'm going to leave this thing closed up and monitor the fire. Actually, that reminds me, I can monitor temps through that ThermoPro, but I actually have this cool wireless meat thermometer that my daughter got me. So I'm actually going to install it in one of the briskets so I can kind of monitor the ambient temperature around the briskets and monitor as it comes up to temperature. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in now. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in this thicker one here in the middle, kind of between where the flat and the point meet. and that will actually help me monitor ambient temperatures and internal temperatures. So we'll see you guys back soon. I'm gonna let that ride for a few hours. All right, so I wanted to check on this stuff. We got these meats kind of softening up. That's real nice. The fat still needs to render. We're not even close on the briskets, but these are actually getting a good color. They're kind of pink. What time is it? Come on, watch. Not so smart now, are you? 3 o'clock. So we got them on at about 1, I believe it was. So they've been going for a couple hours. It's a good color. I'm gonna move them around. This one's closer to the fire. So I definitely don't want to overcook it. They're getting a little kind of soft, but with ribs, what you're trying to do first is just to go ahead and get them a good color, and then we'll soften them up more once we wrap them for sure. But yeah, I've been steadily watching temps. Try to keep it between 250 and 275. That's about all you can do. But wow, those are nice and jiggly. But I'm gonna go ahead and shut this back up and let them run for another hour or so before I check on them. And I think I'm gonna probably go ahead and get this turkey out and prepare it. So be with you in a minute. All right, so let's check on these ribs. Been monitoring temps. Right now it's about 4 o'clock, so not been very long since I checked these and rotated them. I rotated the briskets a little bit. They're starting to get the color on this side as the temps and the convection of the cooker rolls across the top of them. So kind of move stuff around a little bit, keep things even. These ribs are looking pretty good. They've got a good color. Not a lot of pullback off the bone. You kind of want to start to see that too. But they'll really pull off the bone when you crank up the heat, usually when you wrap them. So once you feel like they got a good color, you can really wrap them at any time to finish. I think I'm gonna wait a little bit longer. I do need to get these ribs. It's not important that anything's done today per se. I want to definitely finish one of these racks today though, so I've got about 2 more hours to get that finished so that we can eat it tonight. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and let these go a little bit longer, and then I'll wrap them maybe about in an hour, and then try to finish them within another hour. So at least one of them. So anyways, looking pretty good for now. All right, I'm gonna clean this. I'm actually gonna pull one of the racks of ribs and wrap it in foil and butter, and then put it on my pellet cooker and raise the temps so that I can get that rack of ribs finished tonight. Probably, yeah, it's a little after 4 right now, and so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap one of the racks of ribs so that I can get it finished in time for supper. So let's get out some foil. Actually, I forgot the butter. All right, so got the butter now. I just put a few pads of it, really maybe not too thick, so you don't have an awkward, you don't have the ribs sitting awkwardly, but you can't use too much. The other problem is what doesn't get absorbed into the meat will just be wasted or pour out of your foil. So anyways, let's grab one of these racks of ribs off. You stay away from down there. Ain't nothing for you. Oh, looking good. Let's see. That one looks pretty hearty. Good color. Not as much pullback on the bone as I'd like to see. You can see a little bit there, but we'll get it more pulled back and done. Oh yes, I know. Temps are dropping. Check on this stuff while I'm here. It's looking good. Brisket's starting to sweat. They're tightening up. We're gonna have much farther to go on those briskets. Tallow's looking good. Those ribs can go longer since those aren't for me tonight. Those are going to go to the customer. So anyways, this I'll wrap up and put it onto the pellet cooker at 300 degrees until it becomes real tender. So I got the butter on the meat side, and then I'll flip it back over, of course. Always try to keep your foil tight around. It helps keep the juices up against all your meats. So try not to punch a hole, because then you'll lose all your juices. I've learned that obviously the hard way. So that's pretty good right there. Again, got a good color on it. Got my seasonings. Now I'm gonna use the butter to help keep it tender and juicy, and of course trapping in that stuff in the foil helps keep in the moisture in the meat. Now we just have to cook it until it becomes real tender. I'm gonna let it run an hour at 300 on the pellet cooker and then feel what it feels like. So I'm ready to go ahead and get this turkey prepared. Another another item I got from Cisco. So we're gonna see how this is. This is turkey breast, boneless and skin on. So I'm hoping to get a good smoked flavor on this, and then you know, keep it juicy. So one way I like to do that is injecting it with butter. I don't think I actually need to cut gloves. I'm not actually gonna cut this right now. I'll forego that. I do want to get it out and get it injected with some butter and get it on the smoker now that I have a little bit of room. All right, this is a first for me. Having this kind of a turkey breast. I believe they just intend for you to leave it wrapped like this and cook it. So let's see. Okay. Well, not quite what I expected. Not bad, but what I'm ending up with here is actually a couple little pieces. Looks like I'll be adding those to tonight's supper, maybe. This is what I was going for. Man, 8 pounds. So they're probably trying to go for some weight. They maybe, I don't know. Not too sure, but definitely very interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and apply some butter inside there. Hopefully keep it tasty. Looks like a very nice piece. Definitely large. All right. It's pretty cold out here, so I think the butter solidified even as I was injecting it. You can see some here on the other side that ended up being just butter on the tray. Yeah, it's probably too hard. So it is what it is. I think I got enough in there. I'm actually going to go ahead and put some Lowry's on this thing. imagine the size of this bird. Wonderful little cutlets. All right, well, I don't want to overdo it. I just really want to get some smoke taste, and then we'll reapply some butter and some herbs and stuff as we wrap it back in the foil. So this butter will be used again later, but I'm gonna go ahead and find a place on the smoker. Actually, this side, move this around that a little bit. Yeah. Oh, those ribs are looking good. Give them a little bit more time, and then wrap them. They're starting to soften up a little bit. They could use some pullback, but great color. That's kind of hot. That's one reason I like to go ahead and put the cut gloves on underneath the rubber gloves, but boom. I know. All right, these morsels, I don't know, we'll see. Some smoked turkey pieces, but we're gonna let roll smoke over that for a little while, and then we'll wrap everything. All right, so one thing I like about the pellet cooker is, man, toss some chicken on there and get it grilling. I'm gonna get this chicken cooked up to go with these ribs tonight. Got buddy Steve over and his wife, so we're gonna make a couple things. I'll grill a couple steaks, have some chicken, some ribs, but man, I can already tell these ribs that we wrapped earlier and put up here, already super soft. They're very pliable now, so you know, everything's supposed to be done probably around 6, so another 22 minutes. I'm hoping to get these chickens grilled up, some steaks on here, and have these ribs. But pellet cookers are nice, super convenient to use, really easy. You can finish cooks on them. Definitely easy fuel source, easy to set, forget. Real good to use and real good to have. All right, been putting a lot of good smoke taste on this food here. I've got the other 2 ribs wrapped. This is what they look like. It gets really dark around here pretty early, so I'm at 6:30 and putting this last set of ribs on some butter, wrap it in foil, and I'm gonna let it ride and finish out until it gets real tender. So sometimes I like to take this foil and wrap the end where the bone's really protruding, so that it doesn't poke through the other foil. And I actually probably maybe pulled this piece a little too small, so I'll go ahead and usually fold over the sides like so, and then fold this way. Whatever I do, I try to make it so that the butter and juices cannot leak out. So kind of start wrapping it loosely so that you don't poke through, and then just pinch up the rest right up against the meat. And then these are gonna, yeah, I'm gonna need one more piece of foil. A little too short, but these are gonna go back in the cooker for as long as it takes until they're just really tender to touch. I need to go ahead and get a full-size piece. Don't be shy. They always say measure twice and cut once, right? You cut too short and you got to start from scratch. So same thing with foil, I reckon. So a little extra foil doesn't hurt. We're just trapping in the moisture. We're using the butter to add, well, good buttery taste, and add back in some fat into the meat. So these will just go on the cooker. It really doesn't matter. We're just letting them sit to temp. That other set I pulled off of the pellet cooker earlier. This is how pliable they are. So these are definitely soft. I'm about to go in, slice these up, and we're gonna have them for supper. The rest, that turkey breast and these briskets, they still need some more smoke and time. We're gonna let it roll until after supper. I'll check back on them. All right, so after supper, I'm gonna check on this turkey breast. Really, it's got a good color.
it gets dark out, so it's hard to see things, but it's pretty good color there. I'm gonna check temps. You can wrap it typically around 135. Yeah, we're at 115, so you know, it's got a good color going on it. I'm gonna keep rolling some smoke on it. Continue to see if I can't get it to have a little bit more smoke taste before I wrap it in some butter and herbs. Briskets are looking good. I'm gonna kind of tip them a little bit so that I can get some of the pooling off the top, and then maybe rotate them a bit. Let's see what they look like. Put this on so I can touch them and move them around without really afflicting myself. And, you know, stay a little bit more safe. All right, so not bad. Okay, real tight piece of meat. Got some darkness here, probably crisping over a little, so I'll spritz that with some apple cider vinegar. Rotate it around, see if that don't help. This is the Mama Gemma that we'll be giving to the customer. That one looks really good. Rotate it to a bit. And we'll keep rolling smoke until they get even darker and softer. All right, I got busy and pulled the beef fat off. I'll pretty much strain it, or I strained it somewhat. I took the parts that I strained and put them back in this pot, and we'll see if I can't get it to just squeeze a little bit more juice out of it. Probably wasting a little bit of time. It was a lot of fat today, and I got all of this, so it's not like I got a few more mason jars I'll store it in. It's not like I have a tremendous amount of space, but this stuff will be used later again. Add nice smoke taste and juiciness back into the brisket. Right, so been a little bit while longer. I'm not even really keeping track of time. Kind of busy doing some other stuff inside, but I do want to check on this turkey. I don't want to get it overcooked before I wrap it. So let's see what we're looking at. Oh, well, I would love to be able to get the footage of the goldenness of this thing. It's looking pretty good. So anyways, I'm gonna probe it. I'm looking for it to be at about 135. Ooh, 131, 132. 133. You know what? I think that's good enough. It's got a great color. I'll show you closer up. I'll pull it out here and put it on the table. I'm gonna wrap it in butter and a little bit of herbs and stuff. So we're gonna take a look at that. I'm gonna put on some gloves to pull it out. I'm gonna check the pliability of those ribs, and I'm gonna rotate them brisket. So we'll see what all this stuff looks like. Okay. Got a few pieces of foil ready here, and I got some softened butter. I'm gonna go ahead and lay this down in there. And I'm actually going to, nice. I'm gonna pull this breast off here. Amazing, huge piece. And those ribs are just tender. That one's a little tight. This other one's on top. I'm going to rotate them a little now that I have the room. Well, that's right, I don't quite have the room. Let's see. Great color. Great looking piece. Really nice. That is like a 8-pound breast. Like I said, pretty huge, pretty nice. Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and, well, I have to pull that off for a second. I like to add a little of this seasoning. It's got some herbs and some onion and some garlic and stuff, so that'll help get down in that butter, add some flavor to this bird. But I'm gonna do that there. This was the butter I used earlier for injecting. I left it out here, it got cold, so I don't really want to waste it. Might as well just go ahead and add it. And then we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I'm gonna need this. I try to do all the wraps the upward way, so to speak, so that it doesn't let any of the juices out. Kind of keeps them retained. Okay, and then one more. This one really helps seal it in. Tighten that foil up. Try to get a few foil wraps on there. One, I really want to retain that moisture in there. The foil is going to help cook it to temp and again hold in that moisture. So that's ready to put back on. And I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the pellet cooker. It can't take any more smoke in that foil, and I actually wanna save room here for these briskets to rotate them around a little bit. Definitely gonna tip it. Looking pretty good. I'm looking for that good dark color. Yeah. Rotate it around here, and then this one also. Oh man, that's a monster. Still pretty heavy, still nice in color, getting good color on it. Nice and pretty. Still waiting for some more color on them. I like them to be darker, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep temps running on this thing until those get a good color, and then I'll move them onto the pellet cooker. Set the pellet cooker at 250, put this on the top shelf. Should be done in no time. Now this turkey needs to get up to 165 to be food safe. I'm actually going to get it up to 165, and then I'll be moving it into my oven overnight to rest, or maybe a roaster. I found that a roaster is another good way to keep food at temp safe. The 3 rack of ribs, the brisket, and the turkey are all going to be lunch for a customer tomorrow. I have found that it is easy enough to go ahead and rest all 3 of these meats in an oven at 150 degrees. It's food safe temps, anything above 135, and it also will help them reabsorb and rest into their own juices. Brisket, a good brisket is known to rest at least 12 hours. I've rested them for shorter, and I've rested them for longer. And I found that if you can set an oven at 150 degrees, it's going to be the sweet spot, in my opinion. So, anyways, I'm waiting for the turkey to really get fully cooked up to temp, and I'm waiting for these briskets to get dark enough to go ahead and raise the temperature on them to finish them out. I usually move them over to my pellet cooker to finish them out. So that turkey will be done long before those briskets are done. I'm gonna wait for the ribs to all 3 feel pliable. I'll put them in a tray and rest them overnight also. So I'll get up in the morning, slice it all up, leave it in the tray in their own juices, and then take them to the customer. So we'll see what all I can get filmed, but it's been a real pleasure spending this time with you. All right, so temps are low. I got the device set up to let me know anytime they get down there, so just notified, time to come out, check temps. I've been letting smoke roll over these briskets for a little while longer. I took the ribs off and they were all pliable, like I showed you before, so I went ahead and put them on a cookie sheet and put them in the oven at 150 degrees. So they'll be ready to slice up in the morning and tray. I'm working on some barbecue sauce right now. We finished the potato salad. So I'm just waiting for these briskets to get a good color and for the turkey to be up to temp. I temped it a little while ago. It was about 150. I'd like to get it to 175 and then I'll rest it overnight. I find that works really well. And I'll slice it up in the morning and tray it. And so anyways, let's take a look at these brisket. All right, looking good. Yes, I know. Looking real good. I like the color. I'd actually be pretty happy with moving these over to the pellet cooker here as soon as that turkey's done. So I got a nice dark color. Yeah, that's really dark, but still it's really soft. Oh, that too. So definitely got cooling, so I'm gonna tip it. But yeah, starting to be real flexible, real nice dark bark. Yeah, I got a little cooling there, but that's all right. This is the brisket I'm gonna vac seal and freeze and then reheat later. I want to see how that comes out. Again, I've done something similar. Oh yeah. So this one's hearty. This will be the customer's. Real nice dark color. The fat's really soft. That's pretty good. Not completely rendered, which is why we've got to get it up to temp. But a great color. I'm going to be pretty well pleased to get these over to the pellet cooker just to finish. It'll take many more hours. I didn't start these till noon. Well, I shouldn't say many more hours, but you know, as much as I'm moving other stuff on and off and checking these, they could be done sooner, so keep that in mind. When you are opening and closing the cook chamber a lot, you'll end up stalling your cook sometimes. I'm going to hit these darker spots with a little apple cider vinegar and water, 50-50 trick there. Got the old Pit Boss rolling about 250. I don't want to make it too high. Got that turkey up there on the top shelf. Been sitting there for a little while now, trying to get it up to 165 actually. 155. So still, yeah, 158. So I pressed it in a little further. I try not to go. Okay, 160, 170. I try to get right in the middle though. Okay, well, that seemed to probe a little different. That's nice. It's good to know. 158, 157. So I'm going to come back and just make sure as I probe it all around in there, it does come out a little hotter. I don't know. Definitely don't want to overdo it. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm pretty well pleased with that. I'm going to pull it off and rest it in the oven at 150 overnight. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there because I was getting temps at 165 in there. You definitely, nobody can stand a dry turkey, so leave it at that. Put it on a cookie sheet, put it in the oven at 150 degrees. All right, it's that time. It's midnight, so briskets have been on about 12 hours, a little less. I don't think I actually paid attention what time I was putting them on. So having a good time this morning, preparing everything and really excited about this job. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and take these briskets off and move them over to the pellet cooker. I'm going to put in a lead. I'm going to attach my thermal probe to one of the briskets, and I'm going to let the meter wireless thermometer work in the other one. And I'm going to let the phone alert me when they reach temps. I'll pull them off, wrap them, and rest them overnight after that. So yeah, works really well for me. And so we're going to move them. I like that you can just turn the pellet cooker on. I'll set it at 250, and I will let that go ahead and ride at 250 with the briskets on the second shelf. They should fit. Actually, these are kind of large. We might see how I position them. I try not to put anything on the lower shelf right over the fire pot, but we'll see. Better open the door. All right, so, okay, real good color and real good texture. Everything's still soft, really nice. So, yeah, fat needs to go ahead and get rendered, and it won't do that until it moves on forward. I'm gonna, actually I realized that meter wasn't quite in the middle. Although it's very, very soft. There we go. So we'll see where that is. Very, very soft. Still needs to render more here in the fat. So we're gonna go ahead and put it on the pellet cooker. All right, I'll bring you over there and show you that here in a second. This is the one I'm going to keep. I'm not as well pleased. This is kind of soft, but I bet it's going to be a little bit of crispy bits. Everything else is pretty good, and I don't like that little divot. These weren't amazing pieces, but not bad. I'm sure it'll still be tasty. But yeah, I'll go ahead and put this on the lower shelf over towards my smokestack. That's the little off from the fire pot. That's the least hot spot. And then I'll put in that lead. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and attach this meter lead. It's been on for hours. I'm at still a full battery here. I've been monitoring these briskets all day, and I think I did, whoops, turned it off there. I did charge it the last time I used it, but right now the internal temp of that brisket's 155, so we got a little ways to go. I think the meter was reading a very similar temp on the other one. I'll have to check that one on my phone. You know, maybe I'll pull a second probe here. All right, so I can install this one. I've got the meter temp back there, or the meter probe back there also. A meter probe keeps ambient temps also, so it's pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and move this brisket over a little bit more too. Oh, there's the meter probe. I'm gonna stick this one in here. Yeah, very tight, but I'll be able to set this or the meter to a certain temp. Actually, the meter probe is already set to let me know. Yeah, 157. So these ought to finish up about the same time. Again, I'll add water to that water pot just to help keep everything moist. And I'm going to move this over, and then I'll go to bed and let the alarms for the temperature monitoring tools wake me up when we reach internal of 200. All right, so it is 2 in the morning. I was notified that this brisket here is up to temp. Check if it's probe tender. Oh yeah, so really nice.
coffee. Whoops. I'm done with that anyways. Let's see. Double check this. Oh, that goes nicely in. Jumps right up. 190s for sure. 199, 200. So very soft, chrome tender. I'm gonna stop it there so I don't get carryover. Yeah, 203 for sure. So this one is done. I'm gonna take it out. Oh yeah. Very nice. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this in foil, toss in some smoked beef tallow, and then let it rest. Yeah, we're in the 180s still. Looking good. We're gonna go ahead and let that set until it reaches 200. It'll wake me up when it's done. All right, so, well, almost 3, and I got notified that the other brisket was up to temp. So I'm gonna go ahead and check it out here, pull it, set it on this foil, add the tallow, and wrap it. Hopefully the wind don't blow this foil away here. This thing is looking very, very good. All right, this thing's looking real good. Yeah, real soft, great color. Man, wonderfully tender. And I've got to grab the tallow. So I no longer need the meter probe in there. Pretty cool. Again, helps me monitor ambient temperatures. Although I didn't like the fact that it was kind of woke me up 5 minutes before, telling me that it needed to be taken off and then to rest. And then it told me it needed to rest for something like 45 minutes. So I was kind of disturbed in my sleep beforehand. I like the fact that the Thermal Pro just tells me when it's to the temp I say it is. So anyways, yeah, I like the extra smoke flavor that the tallow can add. And as the brisket rests, it'll reabsorb some of the fat that got cooked out there. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to fold the foil as to keep all the tallow in towards the meat. So don't gotta be too dirty. And again, just a method that I've seen somebody else use, and so I thought I'd try it. It really works for me. I'm gonna rest this in the oven overnight at 150 degrees. I think since I'm using an oven, this helps keep the humidity in, helps keep the moisture, and makes a real nice product after all. So we'll cut this one up tomorrow and tray it along with the turkey and the ribs so that we can present this to a customer. All right, so time to cut up some food. We're gonna see how they come out. This is where the rubber meets the road. I did not sauce any of these. I'm going to let them sauce it. I made a sauce, homemade, from scratch. Whoops, I didn't mean to dump that off.
Bone pulls right out when my knife catches it. Not ideal. They'll have boneless, tasty meat though. I have a hard time seeing that there. Wonderful. It smells so good. So that's the last of the ribs. I will next do the turkey. Amazing. Tender, looks moist. One hard part about catering like this is not being able to eat it. And it is hot. So kept it also in the oven overnight at 150 degrees. And then I had it kind of skinned down in that buttery concoction. And so I wanted to try to crisp the skin up a little bit. It doesn't look like that was necessarily long enough, but I definitely didn't want to ruin the turkey. Oh wow, yep. So anyways, I substitute crispy skin for juicy turkey. But that's hot. I'm gonna finish slicing it and I'm gonna tray it here. Oop. So, that may be pellet cooker running a little hot because it was cold last night. So gotta be careful of that. At the flat, but when it is that juicy and tender, I don't think a little bit of that is going to be an issue. So we're gonna slice this all up and tray it and send it on its way. Let's see, let's try one more slice here. Yeah, that is amazingly juicy and definitely no crispy bits. So very good. We're gonna slice it up and tray it, and I'm gonna deliver this stuff here.